It's Amelia at Polk County Public Libraries, and today I'm going to show you how to make a mini snowman canvas. So you can stop by the Columbus or Saluda Library this week and pick up a free take and make kit that has the paint, canvas, and brushes for this activity. Let's get started. All right, I've got my take and make kit ready, and I'm going to go through the supplies that should be in your kit. Double check and make sure that you have all of the supplies that I have in order to make this project a success. All right, the first thing I'm going to pull out is a reminder that if you take a picture of your completed project and send it to jdickinson@polklibrary.org, you will be entered to win a $20 gift card to a local Polk County business at the end of this month. And I've got my canvas. Your canvas may be bigger than mine, or it may be the same size. This is a mini canvas project, so just keep that in mind as you're painting, and make sure that you're scaling your project to the size of your canvas. I also have several containers of paint. You should have black, blue, white, red, and orange. And there should be enough paint to complete this project in each of the containers. If not, if you have to get more paint for this, or if you want to try this with a family member or friend later after you become an expert, these colors are just the basic crate and barrel paints from Walmart. You can also order them on Amazon, but they are classic blue, classic orange, classic red, classic black, and classic white, just to keep everything super simple. I'm going to move my bag out of the way, and we're going to get started. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to take the plastic off of our canvas. Just a little easier said than done, it looks like. And I think all of the take and make kits had plastic on the canvases, so you may want to get a pair of scissors for this. I'm really struggling. There we go. And since this is a small canvas, fun fact, when you finish your project, you can actually mail this like you would a postcard. It does take a little extra postage, but it's a fun thing to send in the mail and make somebody's day. All right, I'm going to take the lids off of each of my paints. Actually, I'm going to start with blue and white. So I'm going to leave the rest of my paints up here at the top and go ahead and take blue and white off the lids off of those. Okay. Now, some extra materials that you may want to use at home: a cup of water to wash out your paintbrushes, a paper plate so that you can mix some of your paints together, and some paper towels to dry off your paintbrushes after you rinse them off. I'm going to start with my sponge brush, and I want the entire background of my canvas to be blue. Now, if you want it to be a lighter blue, you can mix blue and white together, but I think for mine, I'm going to just start with some regular blue as it is. And depending on how dark you want your canvas background, you can paint it once, or you could put multiple layers of paint for the background. Okay, and I'm going to let my first layer dry. All right, I'm back and my canvas is dry, and I know that because I am able to touch it. And now if you want to go back and add on a blue layer on top of this to make your background nice and solid, you can do that. But I think I'm going to leave mine a little distressed and kind of unfinished, because I'm going to add snowflakes to the background at the very end. But again, that's up to you. You can still add snowflakes to a solid blue background, but I think I'm going to leave mine this way so you can kind of see. Also, I did want to point out that you want to make sure that you have painted the edges of your canvas, okay? Don't want to leave those white, okay? All right, so I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to put it into my water. That should be the last time that I use my sponge brush. So it was only in your packet to paint the background. The next color that I'm going to use is white, and I'm going to start the outline of my snowman. Okay, so your snowman is going to be made up of the head and the top half of the body of the snowman. So 1.5 circles, and the head is going to be smaller than the body. Okay, and you want to leave enough room for him to have a very large hat. So I'm going to say about half of your canvas and lower is what you're going to use as your space for your snowman's body and head. A good trick here is to start small, and then you can always make it bigger later. And paint is very forgiving. If you need to go back and paint the background blue again, you should have plenty of blue if you need to start over. Keep in mind that you are doing just half of a circle. I've got a little bit more than half of a circle, but that's okay. And try to keep that circle shape because snowmen do not have shoulders. So snowman is made up of 3 circles. So you want to keep those nice rounded edges. Circles are the hardest thing, I think, to paint or draw. So hopefully your snowman is not going to be lopsided. Mine kind of looks like he's already melting, but that's okay. And still notice that I have used only half of my canvas, using the bottom half for the snowman. And that's because the top half is going to be his hat. His hat is quite big, so you do want to connect these 2 circles. Remember that they just touch, okay, so that way you're getting 2 definite parts of the snowman's body. Okay, for our snowman, we are going to want to put 2 layers of white paint on there. So as soon as I am happy with my snowman, I will let it dry and add a second layer of paint. So I'll see you back in just a minute after the paint dries. All right, so my snowman is almost dry, or at least I think he's dry enough to go ahead and add on to our painting. So the next part that we're going to add on is his hat, and for the hat we're going to use our black paint. Now if you're like me, you've just cleaned off your brush, so go ahead and dry it off really well on your paper towel and take the lid off of your black paint. Okay, so our snowman's hat is made up of 3 rectangles, a small one, a medium, and a large one. So the smallest rectangle starts on his head, and then the medium-sized one stacks right on top of that, followed by the largest one. Now, this is up to you if you want to do a special type of hat with your snowman. If you want to stick to just 1 rectangle, that's okay, but I'm going to be very brave and I'm going to try for the 3 rectangles on to make the hat, so on top of his head. So I'm going to use the rest of my space here. I'll want to leave a little bit of a border up at the top, so I won't make his hat all the way to the top of the canvas, but I'll leave just a little bit there, and I'll add my 3 rectangles. Now this is using black paint, so I don't want you to get frustrated with this. Remember, this is a small canvas that you're working on, so just be gentle with yourself with this process. So I've got some black paint on my brush, and I'm going to start adding my rectangles. Now your rectangles, you're going to want to curve your edges so they look like a hat when they're stacked on top of each other, not necessarily 3 black boxes. I'm just giving you the outline of the shapes. We may want to go back and add a little bit of white to our snowman, or he can just have kind of a silly hat that's like barely hanging in there. And you can see I've decided to go with a smaller rectangle at the top for my hat. The important part is that you're just wanting to add these edges to give your hat some character. So I'm going to fill in my hat with the black paint. I did not mean to shake the camera just then. Hopefully that did not mess you up. Now our hat also has a decorative band or a ribbon that goes around it. You can choose to add that or skip that step. I am going to add it for the sake of this video. And it also has a brim. And the brim on your snowman's hat should have curly edges. Again, that's up to you and what you decide to do with your project. Your snowman is going to look different than mine, and I hope that you remember to take a picture and send it to us at the library. I know we have some very talented artists, and my snowman may end up looking a little rough, but I am excited to see what yours turns out looking like. Okay, so there's kind of his hat, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and add on the brim for his hat. I'm not going to curly cue it all the way around. I'm just going to curl it up and around. So we've got our little curl there and our little curl there. So it curls more on one edge for me. Not intentionally do that, but it's going to work. Okay? Okay, so we'll want to let our black paint dry. Black paint is very, the color is very heavy, obviously, and you should not need to put 2 layers of black paint on your snowman's hat. If you want to, by all means, go for it, but there should not be a need to do that. While your black paint is drying, I'm going to go ahead and add some snowflakes to the background, and I'm going to do that with the tip of my paintbrush. So I'm going to pull over my white paint again so it's easily accessible. And I'm going to use the tip of the paintbrush. You can also use a Q-tip at home or a toothpick, okay? You can add snowflakes that look like the little stars, the crisscross snowflakes, or you may choose to just do dots. I think I'm going to do dots on my snowman canvas. I also like to put them in sets of 3, but there's not a snowflake rule. You can put as many snowflakes as you want together. The harder you touch your canvas with the tip of your paintbrush, the bigger the circle you will get. The lighter you touch, the smaller you will get. So. Okay, I might add some up here too. Okay, so there are my snowflakes, and I'm going to allow my paint to dry before I keep working on the hat. But while we have the video rolling, I'm going to begin working on our snowman scarf. Okay, so go ahead and rinse out your paintbrush. You can also wipe off the tip of your paintbrush. Otherwise you will get white paint or snow on the outfit that you're wearing or on your hands. I already have blue paint on my hands. So this is acrylic paint. If you get it on your clothes, it's going to be very difficult or possibly not even come out of your clothes. So just be careful with that. Okay, so I'm not going to use the end of my paintbrush again, so if you end up with some white paint stuck on there, that's okay. I'm going to use the tip of my paintbrush, the brush end. Okay, all right, we're going to get out the red paint for the scarf. And the scarf is going to go right around your snowman's neck. For me, my snowman ended up more on the right side of the canvas, so I might put the tails of my scarf coming off the left just to balance the picture a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So basically this step we're going to take and we're going to draw or paint rather a red line across the neck for the scarf, and then we're going to add 2 tails to this scarf. So think of that as the letter V, okay? And the V is going to come up to meet that line. And you'll see what'll happen with that in just a second. You can choose to make your scarf red, and you can add in accents of white or black if you wanted to make a plaid scarf or add texture to it. But I think for the purposes of this video, I'm going to make my scarf red and just leave it solid red. Okay? So remember, when you're wearing a scarf, your scarf does not hang in a straight line. So it's not going to be necessarily a rectangle. You're going to curve it a little bit. So it's going to be like a curved line on your snowman. Okay? Okay, so there's my line, and I can make that thicker if I want to a little later. But now I'm going to add the 2 tails of this scarf. So these are the ends of the scarf that are kind of fluttering in the wind in our picture. And it's going to be in the shape of a letter V. So I'm going to have one piece that's going to come down here, and I'm going to have it go all the way off my canvas. If you want to get creative and add a tail to your scarf, go right ahead. But I'm going to have mine go off the canvas, and this one is going to finish off our letter V and come out to the side. Now, as you can see, the red paint is going to need to cover both the blue background and the white of the snowman. And I think it's going to even need to cover some of my snowflakes. I got a little snowflake happy over here. Oh, my hands are shaking. I'm sorry if you're watching the video and painting at the same time. I'm going to put on this paint pretty thick. It will dry. It'll take longer to dry, but that's okay. I just want to make sure that it's thick enough to cover. Now you can go back and add in a second layer of paint if you need to. I'm going to try to even up my scarf down here on the bottom. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I might add in a little bit more on the top just to even out my snowman's head. A little bit more part of his head can be covered up with the scarf. His neck's really warm. Okay, and I'm going to finish letting the hat, the snowflakes, and the scarf dry before we add on some final touches and give our snowman a face. All right, I am back again, and now my hat on my snowman canvas has completely dried. The scarf is still a little wet, but that's okay. I'm going to work around that. And you may notice that I'm getting some texture with the amount of paint that I'm using on the snowman as well as on the scarf. I'm okay with that because I love texture in artwork, but if you are doing this at home and you want everything to be perfect and crisp and flat, I would recommend letting your paint dry in layers. You can see that with the hat. It looks like it's more two-dimensional. With our scarf, we're getting more depth on the canvas. Like I said, I'm okay with that, and I love the texture that I have going on with the snowman because it does look like he's actually made of snow. So your artwork, your decision, but for right now we are going to add a nose and eyes and a mouth to our snowman and bring him to life. So I'm going to take the orange off of my orange paint, and we're going to give him a carrot nose. Again, looking at your own artwork, decide which way your snowman is facing. I feel like my snowman's face is kind of pointing up and out because his scarf is headed towards the back. So, and his hat is also tilted that way too. So if I were to put his nose facing this direction, that might be a little funny. It would look like he was looking down. You could also plan on your snowman looking forward and doing the carrot nose towards you, or you could have the carrot nose sticking up in the air. Again, totally up to you. You decide with this one, but I think I might put my carrot nose going out to my right side just to give the balance to the canvas. And I'm working around my tripod, so that's an extra challenge here. Let's see, I'm trying to decide exactly where I want his nose to come from. I think I'm going to start it from here and point it out. So remember, with your paint, always start smaller, and as you need to add to your nose to make it bigger. That's much easier to do than starting bigger and realizing you have a really big nose. So going to add some of my white paint is actually mixing in with this, and that's working in my favor because it's adding some depth to the carrot, which is cool. And I've also added some character to my snowman's nose because it curves a little bit at the bottom. That happened on accident, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it in there. Again, you can let this dry and then add another layer of paint to it. But I'm going to rinse out my brush and begin adding eyes and a mouth. Okay, so I'm going to scoop my orange paint out of the way and move my black closer. For my snowman's mouth and eyes, I'm going to start with the tip of my paintbrush and just see what happens if I do the dots like I use, or like I did for the snowflakes. If it doesn't end up working out, we can always add to it, and it'll at least give us a circle to start with. So I'm going to start with his eyes. I'm going to put one right there, and I am going to have to add to it, it looks like, because they're not quite as big as I want them to be. So I will add with a paintbrush later, but it gives me a little bit of direction on where his eyes are going to be. And you can see that he's already kind of looking up and to the right corner like I was hoping for. So I am going to add some more there, see if I can make his eyes a little bit bigger. You can do this, you can add to the circle with your paintbrush side. I'm just trying it with the tip of the brush to see what happens. And remember that your snowman, his eyes and his mouth are made out of coal. So coal is not perfectly round. So you can have some forgiveness with that. So there's my snowman's eyes. Okay. That may be a little too abstract for that piece of coal. There we go, that's a little better. And I'm going to clean off my brush because I did have a lot of paint on the tip of that before adding his mouth. I've noticed that in more art pieces recently, especially with Snowman, the theme, if you'll look on Pinterest or Google search paintings of snowmen, the popular thing to do is to leave them without a mouth. You can also do that. I am going to put a couple of dots for his mouth, just because if he is frosty, I want him to be able to talk. And I'm going to give him kind of half of a little smile over here. I got really lucky with my dots. The dot in the middle there ended up being a little bit smaller, which is perfect because it gives him a little smirk, and I like that a lot. All right, so I'm happy with how my snowman turned out, and I think I'm going to leave him as it is. Some additional suggestions if you want to continue being creative with this project. You can use some translucent glitter and sprinkle over the top. Any part of your project that is still wet with paint, the glitter will stick into that. You could also put a clear coat on top of your finished piece, and that will give it more of a shine. Right now it has a matte look to it. You could take some of your white paint and go back and accent his hat a little bit more, maybe add some snow to the brim. We talked about adding in a ribbon on his hat. You can most certainly do that. In the picture that is in your kit, or at least on the flyer that we have out, the snowman has some holly on his hat. Since we're not really in the Christmas season right now and it's more January and we're just hoping for snow, I'm not going to put holly on his hat. I'm happy with how his hat turned out, but you can certainly add a ribbon to match his scarf. You could add some holly, some extra snow. You could give him some red cheeks or pink cheeks, mix the red and white together to get a pale pink to give him some cheeks. But I hope your creation turns out as well as mine did, or even better. I can't wait to see what you came up with. So remember, after you have finished this video, take a picture of your snowman and send it to the email address on the next slide to be entered to win a gift card at the end of this month. I hope you had fun.